We're waiting on other.
No, you can go ahead and start, Willie. So you can share your screen and kick off whenever you're ready.
Cool. Right. Right, well, thanks for the invite and thanks for joining room 2. So it's about managing and motivating the individual within the team. Not necessarily harder than motivating individuals in an individual sport, but certainly a lot more layers to it and a lot more complex probably. So it's a subject we could probably talk about for hours and hours, but we'll try and summarize it all within 15 minutes. So my subject matter is football. So if we look at what the makeup is and how we get to the individual, we have one squad of players and a number of staff attached to that. On any given match day, we have one team, 11 players, and depending on what league, what competition you're in, it could be 5, 7, up to 9 subs. International football, you could be looking at 11 subs. But the problem is we've got potentially 25 players. So immediately we've got a problem. 25 does not fit into 11. So how are we motivating the players that are playing, the players that are not playing, and everything else in between? We've got a short-term motivation, which is probably fairly obvious. Our short-term motivation is the game ahead of us. Everybody should have that common purpose of we want to win this game. But then we have sort of the medium-term motivation of potentially winning a cup, winning a championship, avoiding relegation, whatever that club's objectives are. But then we've got the longer-term motivation as well. So is this a young kid through the youth academy who is just delighted to be training first team football every day? Or is this a highly motivated individual who wants to win medals? Or is this a player coming towards the end of their career who wants to be in a professional environment, but they are there to get as much fulfillment as possible? So you'll have all these different motivations and you have to try and maneuver them to fit the club's short-term objectives, long-term objectives, and everything else in between. So the thing that confuses this is the continual management of that group. So we can all have our motivations, but then you've got every individual bringing their own challenges to the everyday environment as well. So we're always conscious of the human being. We're always conscious of, if we're in a high performance environment, what our purpose is, and that is to be high performance and probably be achieving something. And we also want to not treat everybody the same, but treat everybody fairly. So there are a number of different things going on within this. Now, one of the things that we read in textbooks all the time is, what is your why? Find out what your why is, because that is the motivator. Really simple. We've read it. It's in black and white in a textbook. What is your why? So I ask that question, what is your why? And I get different nationalities. I get different whys. I get some that are quite similar, but I get a lot that are different. So I've asked the question, which the textbook says, ask the question, what's your why? But now I've got 25 different whys, and we need to be motivating them all to get those short-term results, those medium-term objectives of a championship or a cup. So this creates a challenge within itself, although it is very important to understand every individual. So we try and find a common purpose. Now, this is a number of them. Again, they all have their own complexities, but they will all be probably fairly consistent amongst some of the group. Probably not all of the group, but definitely some of the group. So family is always one that we find as a commonality across a number of the squad. And it may be I play football because my grandmother played back in the day when women were close to getting banned from playing football. It could be that I want to repay my mum and dad for taking me all over the country 4 times a week. So family can be a big motivator. External reward, like it or not, external reward will be a motivator for a number of players. It could be the salary, it could be the status. There could be a number of external things that are motivating that person. Without a doubt, there will be an intrinsic motivator. There will be players who want to fulfill their potential, to be the best version of themselves, to achieve whatever they can in the game. There will be players who have signed for your club, and I think I caught the tail end of Stacey Copeland speaking about what you say on your website or you have on your corridors. If you've got big, powerful words on your corridors, you have to make sure you're living by them. So players may have signed for your club because they believe in your club values. So that is what is motivating them. And if you're not living by those values on a day-to-day basis, that motivation will go. But without a doubt, especially now, as I say, if we use football as a subject matter, the men's game and the women's game, we have got dressing rooms full of international players, of players from different countries, and everybody signs for a club for different reasons. So your club values could be a common purpose amongst a number of the players. There may be a strapline that you have at your club that you can use as your common purpose. So at Everton, the badge and the motto on the badge is Latin, and it's Nil Satis Nisi Optimum, and that is translated into nothing but the best is good enough. So that is one that I used when I first went into the club, because we were bottom of the league and we wanted to ensure that people were driving standards and not feeling sorry for themselves. So it was a really easy one-liner that we could hit people across the head with, I suppose, is that good enough? Is that your best? And if it isn't, it's not good enough. So it was a really easy thing we jumped on straight away at Everton when I first went in there, because we looked at it every day. It was on every badge. It was in every corridor. When you seen the Everton badge, Nil Satis Nisi Optimum, it wasn't just there because it looked fancy, because it was Latin. It actually meant something, and we used that as a motivator for the whole group. We then changed our kit, and Hummel came in, and Hummel used this strapline of more than 11. And that was for club wide. But within the women's team, we were about to put together probably our largest squad that we'd ever had, of close to 25 players. And I thought that was a really clever thing that we could use to motivate the players that weren't playing, in terms of, this is about more than the 11 on a Saturday or a Sunday. This is about pushing each other every day in training to make sure that the team are prepared for the game, and you are improving yourself regardless of you playing in that first 11 or not, because a lot of the time that is out with your control. That is the manager's decision. So that was a strapline that we used for a full season, which was more than 11. And then at Leicester, there was a famous quote that the late chairman said when he took over the club, and it was, "Our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." Now, the men's team have went and won the Premier League and the FA Cup in the last 10 years. And that was something that, again, we used with our players, in terms of, was that a common purpose that everybody could buy into? So they all have their own motivations, as I said, in terms of the questions that we'd ask them. But then is there something that everybody can be part of? And that was something that we found was quite effective. You then have your common purpose in terms of team targets. And is it a points target? Is it a position in the league? Is it a cup run? So again, how are you ensuring that the message to everybody is heard by every individual? So do you want to get to Wembley? Is something that everybody in that room would be motivated by. Some more than others. Some had maybe been there before. But was that something that, regardless of you being in the team on a Saturday, your end goal was, can we get to Wembley? Can we experience that? So your team targets can certainly be a common purpose, but every individual can buy into it. One of the things that I found kept every individual on the same page was about creating an environment. And how we do that is to ensure that everybody has a shared accountability for the high performance environment that you're creating. And the way we do that, or the way we did that, was the players and the staff to identify what a high performance environment is. So we asked the question, we did it with staff, we did it with players, and we split them into groups and said, what does a high performance look like? A high performance environment look like? What does it feel like? And what does it sound like? And you would come up with your answers. We would move the group round, cross out any ones they disagreed with, add anything they thought had been forgotten, move them round again. And then basically we came up with an agreed high performance environment that the players and the staff came up with. And if they were not living by it, they were failing their own environment. This was not something that was being forced on them. This was something that they had come up with and they had written down in black and white. So again, that was quite a clever way of making sure every individual was motivated within the team. And then we got into some of the more granular detail around clear performance indicators tied into playing principles. So this is the way we want to play. And in order for this to be successful, this is what your performance indicators will have to look like. So on any given day, you can get a result against any given team. But in order to maintain those results and get sustainability of those results, we felt the best thing was to focus on performance and not the scoreline. So it was about presenting the day after a game, it was about presenting the performance indicators before we spoke about the result. And again, that was a really clever way of keeping everybody involved and motivating every individual. But probably better than that was when we took it down another level into positional profiles. And within each positional profile, we attached performance indicators for every position. So every individual was very, very clear on what they had to be good at or what they had to become better at in order for the team to be successful. So these are just some of the examples. So the actual detail probably doesn't matter in terms of seeing exactly what it says on the page, but these are the performance indicators that we used for the team. So this was about performance. And we didn't just pluck a number out there. We knew where we wanted to get to. We knew what it would take to get there in terms of our performance indicators. We knew what we'd achieved before and what all the league averages were. So we set ourselves a target, and that's how we rated ourselves on a game-by-game basis, on a block-by-block basis. So the performance indicators we used, we felt were a good guide of how we would want to play. And we knew what we'd achieved last year, and we knew what the top half of the table looked like in terms of performance. So that's how we came up with these, and that's how we came up with the numbers. And we basically did this on a game-by-game basis. Now, this is really, really important in terms of an example I always give is we played a game and we changed the formation. So the principles don't change just because the formation changes. And we lost 5-0. So you would automatically say that the formation change was really silly by the manager and we should never, ever touch that formation again. And then we looked at the performance data behind it and noticed that we'd hit 70% of our performance indicators, bizarrely. So it allowed us to look back at the game with less emotion. And we decided to make a couple of little tweaks to the game plan for the next again game. We won the next again game in injury time. We won the next again game 4-0. And ultimately, those two games and that formation change kept us up that season. So again, the performance indicators were motivating everybody within the squad. But then again, if we're talking about and then from that, we could also chunk it into blocks. So any game can throw up completely variable numbers But if you looked at blocks of 5 or 6 games, you could hopefully see the squad improvement. And again, that was motivating everyone within the squad in terms of, this doesn't happen because we play the game well. This happens because we train well and we train our principles on a daily basis. So you could see the squad improvement. And again, whereas if you look at that, somebody could say, well, that's because we had our strongest 11 out. Whereas that was 5 or 6 games and you could see the squad improvement rather than just a really good 11 that day. And then, as I said, the level below that, which was really important for individual players, was this is what we wanted a centre-back to look like. But this was the objective data that would let us know and let the player know if they were performing at the levels that we wanted. And what we could then do was almost score them against each other. So this was great for recruitment. So we had to make sure we were trying to recruit better than what we already had in-house, but we could also put the players up against each other. So it was really motivating them to improve and to focus on what we felt was the most important parts of performance. So ultimately, and for some people it might be out of shot if you've got everybody's face down the side, but the far right column, it gives a score out of 100. So Howard, T-Bone, Green, that's the amount of games they played, 11.3, 8.9 and 7.7, and you could see their individual scores on the right-hand side. So that we found was highly motivating for the individual to know exactly if they did certain things in a game, they would score highly in these indicators, and that would let them know, regardless of the result, if they'd had a good game, if they'd contributed to the team performance. So that is a lot of information in a short space of time, but this is going to blow the whole presentation out of the water. There is no right or wrong. It is basically what works for you in the situation that you find yourself in, and then the environment that you're in, the level that you're operating at, and what do you believe in? Because as the leader, as the manager, whatever your title is, if you do not believe in it yourself, it's going to be very, very hard to sell it to the players and to motivate any individual or any group within that. So it's something that you've got to believe in, and you've first and foremost got to buy into it yourself before you try and get others to buy into it. So, but yeah, that's some of the key things for me in terms of ensuring that you motivate 25 players, but you understand what every one of those 25 players needs or what motivates them.
Brilliant.
That flew by, Tracy, so I don't know.
That was brilliant. No, thanks, Willie. And I guess by giving the team and players all that information, I think it shows that people care. Isn't like you take your time out to give that information. That can also be a motivator, knowing that someone behind the scenes is really taking time to understand all the different roles that people can play and the data behind it as well. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
I think so. I think that's again, it's fascinating because I did think that, and then some people. What I found with foreign players is it was a job to them.
Mm.
So actually, they were here for the money and for the job, and they never actually bothered that much if the manager or the coach cared. But that was a big motivator for the British players was, well, does the coach actually care? So again, that just adds to the complexity of the issue of 25 players and trying to find the little golden nuggets that motivate all the individuals within the 25.
Yeah, yeah. Has anyone got a quick question before we move into the other room? London. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Willie. That was
No
super
problem.
interesting.
Hopefully.
And if anyone's got any questions for Willie, I know that we're short in time, but feel free to send me an email and I can send them on to Willie as well.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. So insightful.
Great. Thank you. Enjoy the
Cheers,
rest of the
guys. And we'll all go into the main room now for the next talk.